Hey there, I'm Suri, a therapist, mom of four big feeling kids, grandparent of 9, and someone who's been in more parenting trenches than I can possibly count. Now, in the last video, we talked about what opposite action is, when to use it, and why it works. And now we're going to get really practical. We're going to look at what opposite action looks like when you're deep in real life parenting moments and your emotions are screaming loud. So let's break it down by emotion. We'll start with anger. So some of those more common parenting triggers for anger are things like having to repeat yourself for the 10th time, not being listened to or being ignored, getting yelled at or hit by your child, or a child just not listening. Now let's talk about what the function of anger is, because all emotions have a purpose. And the function of anger is to help us detect injustice or a blocked goal. And it mobilizes us to protect, to defend, and to act. So anger is likely to get triggered in situations where we feel that someone's gotten in our way of achieving a goal, someone is threatening us, or we've lost control. Now, what are the action urges associated with anger? What are those things that we're neurobiologically wired to have an urge to do when we experience anger? And here's where you have yelling, threatening, shutting down, slamming, withdrawing, those sort of aggressive types of responses. But here's the thing, acting on anger often escalates conflict. It increases power struggles. It teaches your child that big angry emotions equals aggressive responses. So now let's talk about opposite action for anger. What would you do if you were choosing the opposite when you feel angry, either because you realize the facts don't fit this feeling, or you recognize that acting on that emotion is not going to be effective? And here's what you're going to do. Opposite of anger, you're going to pause, breathe, speak gently, and loosen your body. Those are all the opposite of our biologically wired responses, where we get faster, we breathe heavily, we speak loudly, and our body is tense. So let's take an example. Let's imagine that you say, all right, it's time to turn off the iPad, and your child screams back at you, you're the worst, I hate you. Your biologically wired emotion is to get angry. And the urge that comes with that might be to snap back or punish. Now let's look at what the opposite action would be in that situation. You pause, you speak gently, you relax your body, and you say something like, I see you're having a big reaction. I'm going to stay calm so that we can figure this out. And your posture matters. Open, soft, slow voice, let go of the tension. Now, why does this work? It works because it calms your nervous system down and it de-escalates theirs by extension. Now let's take a look at fear. So some of those common parenting triggers that trigger fear in a parent is letting your child struggle or face a disappointment, leaving them at school when they're crying, allowing natural consequences to unfold. Those are all pretty common triggers. Now let's look at the function of fear. What is fear there for? Well, the purpose is to keep us safe from danger. Now the action urge that's associated with fear. Here's where we have urges to avoid, rescue, over-accommodate, over-control, sort of those fight or flight responses. But think about it. If you act on those natural action urges, it's going to reinforce your child's avoidance. It gets in the way of skill building and it keeps everybody stuck in an anxiety loop. So if you decide that anxiety and the urge to avoid is not the effective way to go, consider opposite action. What would that look like? Well, instead of avoiding, gently approach. Stay with the hard moment instead of running away. Let the discomfort, the anxiety, the worry be okay for you and your child. So let's take a look at an example. Imagine that your child is sobbing at the idea of going to a birthday party. They're anxious. They don't want you to leave them alone. What emotion do you experience? Worry, anxiety. How are they going to manage? How are they going to handle it? And your urge, biologically wired, is avoidance. Let them skip it, comfort them, cancel plans, avoidance. Now, if you decide that the action urge that's associated with fear, basically avoidance, is not effective or doesn't match the facts, that's when you're going to want to consider opposite action. So let's check the facts first. Is there actually anything for your child to be fearful of at the party? Is there anything dangerous? The answer is no. Then your emotion of fear doesn't match the facts, in which case opposite action will be the way to go. You might say something like, I know this feels scary, and we're still going. That's approach instead of avoid. And it's going to be important to use a really steady tone, relaxed posture, confidence, and a warm but firm presence. Now, why does this work? It works because it rewires your fear by giving your brain new information. We can do hard things without avoiding and survive, which is an important lesson for big feeling kids who tend to be avoiders. Now let's take a look at sadness. Common parenting triggers for feelings of sadness might be feeling disconnected from your child, noticing that they're pulling away, or believing that you failed them in some way. And what's the purpose of sadness? Purpose of sadness is to slow us down, ask for help, and help us process loss or unmet needs. Now, the biologically wired action urge that's associated with sadness is to withdraw, ruminate, isolate, give up. The problem with that is if you act on sadness, it often creates emotional distance from other people, can keep us really stuck in hopelessness, and it reduces motivation. So if you check the facts and you find that sadness does not match the facts of the situation or won't be effective, that's where you're going to want to opt for opposite action. What would that look like? Instead of withdrawing or isolating, you engage, you move, you connect, you do something positive, even when you don't feel like it. So let's take a look at an example. So imagine that your teen rolls their eyes and shuts you down again, and you feel that wave of sadness about a relationship that's not going the way that you want it. And your thought is, they don't want me, they don't like me. Your urge, retreat, give up, stop trying, throw in the towel. Now, if you check your facts and determine that sadness is not a good match for the facts of that situation, or that the urges that you experience in response to your sadness are not going to be effective, that's when you choose opposite action. So you might want to do something like knocking on her door and saying, hey, I'm going to make some hot chocolate. Come on out if you want some. Or send a nice text. Rough day. I'm here when you're ready. So instead of withdrawing or isolating, you're actually connecting and approaching. Now, why does that work? Because even small acts of connection disrupt that sadness spiral and build safety and trust. Now let's take a look at the last emotion that parents often confront when they're raising big feeling kids. And that's shame. So what are some things that commonly trigger shame? Well, it could be parents' own behavior. So you snap at your child or you blame them or you yell at them. Sometimes it's what the child is doing. So watching your child behave badly or poorly in front of other people. It might even be comparing yourself to better parents. Now let's take a look at what the function of shame is. What's the purpose of shame? Well, the purpose of shame is to signal to us that we've stepped out of alignment with our values. And the action urge associated with that is to hide, over apologize, beat yourself up, try to fix it, shut down. But if you act on that shame, it might teach your child that mistakes equal unworthiness, and that prevents repair and growth. So if you check your facts and notice that the emotion of shame and the action urge associated with it doesn't fit the facts of that situation or won't be effective if you act on them, go for that opposite action. So what would that look like? Instead of over apologizing or hiding or beating yourself up, own the mistake. Without spiraling, without berating yourself, show up, reconnect, reassert your values, recommit to your values, and move forward. So let's look at an example. Imagine that you lost your cool and yelled much louder and much more angrily than you wanted to. What urge do you experience? Avoiding your child, apologizing excessively, isolating, withdrawing, wallowing in self-pity or self-judgment. Now, again, if you take a look at those facts and you find that the emotion doesn't fit the facts, or acting on that emotion won't be most effective, go for the opposite action. So what might that look like? It might look like approaching your child instead of avoiding them, acknowledging the mistake without excessive apologies. So I didn't handle that well. I'm working on staying calm even when I'm overwhelmed. Can we try that again? Using a very grounded tone, an open posture, and a stance of self-respect. Now, why is that important? Because it models accountability, it models how to repair, and it models self-confidence. And most of all, it keeps you connected and trustworthy, even when things go off the rails. So just some final thoughts. Opposite action is not something that's going to happen easily, but it is powerful. It's about choosing to act from a place of your values, not your feelings in any given moment. And honestly, you're not always going to nail it. I don't. That's okay. What matters is this. You notice the emotion, you notice the urge, you pause, and you choose something different if the facts don't match the feelings or it's not effective. And you do it again and again. And that's how we shift emotional cycles in ourselves and in our kids. You've got this. See you in the next video.